her up with or without the volleyball ref. So this is Cheryl Lund. She lives right on up the way that way, and she is going to give a Mill family history.
Just as a side note, I remember stopping at Dud's store for, you could have grape pop or orange pop. So Chrisanna compiled this. I wish she was here to read it. But the following narrative with excerpts from an article that appeared in Cow Country, written by Margaret Jeannie, the book Our Heritage, Niobrarans and Neighbors, published by the Niobrara County Historical Society, and the book Hat Creek in Hard Times by Edward C. Bryant. This is where we got all of our information. The history of the Mill Ranch begins in Baden, Germany in the year 1873. Excuse me. 21-year-old Jacob Mill had just been granted a one-year extension on his military draft due to the fact that he was a small man. Conditions were bad in Germany at this time, and young Jake could see no future in the old world with its harsh military regimes and constant depression. He had heard of a place called America, and he made up his mind to go to this new place where the opportunities were unlimited. Jake found work on a freighter bound for the United States to pay for his fare. When his ship landed on American shores, Jake set about the laborious task of earning money to bring his brothers to the New World. After his brothers were out of Germany and settled in various parts of the United States, Jake himself tried to settle in Des Moines, Iowa. But the same determination and inquisitiveness that had brought him to the United States soon lured him to the West and vast unknown regions it contained. While making his way west, he worked many jobs. He herded cattle in the area of Denver, Colorado, and gave up the idea of homesteading on a piece of land there because the ground was too rough. The Albany Hotel was later built on that land. He also trailed sheep from Oregon to Wyoming and then became a freight drover between Cheyenne and Deadwood during the Black Hills Gold Rush era. It was on his freight route, where he camped on Sage Creek, that he spotted the piece of land that he would later call home. In October of 1883, Jacob Mill decided he'd had enough of odd jobs and traveling. He wanted to settle down. So he married Miss Philipina Kappelman of Des Moines, Iowa, and they moved to Fairburn, South Dakota to homestead. The land was good and the grazing plentiful, but the years began to see more homesteaders, and it wasn't long before the free range was taken and the number of livestock a rancher could run had to be drastically reduced. Too much so to enable a man to make a decent living ranching. In 1891, Jacob Mill was on the move again, this time in search of a place he could build up into a profitable ranch, and his search brought him to his old campsite on Sage Creek. He purchased that parcel of land in the spring of 1891 from a Mr. Otterback. In the fall of 1891, Mr. Mill brought his wife and 5 children by covered wagon from Fairburn to their new home on Sage Creek. Starting with just a small band of sheep and a single cow he brought from South Dakota, it was here that Jake Mill built one of the largest ranches in the area, and where he himself became one of the time's most well-known and well-liked stockmen. Sheep and cattle were the main interest on the ranch, but there was very seldom any extra cash to buy the extra cow or calf that a rancher can always use. So Jake welcomed the trails, herds that camped on one of his flowing springs. The camping spot had all the water and graves the herds needed for an overnight stop, and soon became known as the trail bosses as Mill's Falls. For the use of this lush campsite, Mr. Mill was sometimes given a calf that was born there, or an animal that was too weak to trail any further. In this way, he obtained the valuable extras that helped to build his cattle herd. Many of the ranchers during that time raised both cattle and sheep, but a few others than Jakey raised good horses as well. He even tried raising hogs, Ben, and in 1912 sent a railroad load of hogs to Omaha, perhaps the only time in history that such a shipment came from Niobrara County. When the railroad moved into nearby Lusk in 1886, all the free range was quickly taken. Once more, Jacob Mill had to seek land for his livestock. It was at that time he obtained the 40s along Lance Creek, Lightning Creek, and 20 Mile Creek. With his new holdings, Mill was able to run approximately 40,000 head of sheep and 2,000 head of cattle. The original ranch at Sage Creek was maintained as a nucleus ranch, and it was here that grub was distributed to the sheep and cow camps, and where the ranch business was handled. Cow camps were spread over the various parts of the holdings, as were the sheep camps, and the sheep were trailed to the shearing pens in Lusk, where a large camp was also maintained by the ranch. Jake was on the first telephone line and generously shared the telephone with the ranchers and homesteaders who needed to call a doctor or required other emergency communication with the outside world. Make no mistake, this was still the Wild West. A story in our Heritage, Niobrarans, and Neighbors book described a cold-blooded murder that occurred on Jake's U-Bar L Ranch in 1911. Albert and Ray DeGearing were batching on their homestead when a man walked in about sundown and wanted to stay the night. They were suspicious as he was on foot and not horseback, but they let him stay anyway. After supper, the man said, "If you knew who I was, you probably wouldn't let me stay at all." Al said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I killed a man at the U-Bar L Ranch, which was owned by Jake Mill. They had been working sheep, and one of the men kept picking on him. He told the fellow if he didn't lay off, he would cut his heart out." But not believing him, the man continued. Suddenly, this fellow pulled out a knife and killed him. Indian battles, hard years, and age were some of the factors involved in Jacob's decision to disperse some of his holdings and retire to his Sage Creek Ranch. During the Great Depression, Jake helped a number of his fellow cattlemen financially, to the point that it was detrimental to himself. It was said that if anyone was down and out without a job or in need of food for his family, Jakey would give him a job. With their smaller amount of land to manage and semi-retirement, the Mills had time to enjoy the home they had built, and hospitality flowed there. Their graciousness afforded many a weary buggy traveler a place to rest, freshen up, and enjoy a good visit before traveling on. The first house built at the ranch sat on the creek, flanked by the bunkhouse and other log buildings. The log house was replaced in 1902 by a new house, which is where Jake and Lori Reed reside today. In 1923, a large barn was put up, and you can see it from the road if you look, and it too is still in use. The buildings are nestled in the foothills of the Hat Creek breaks on the creek, and they make a handsome setting against the blue Wyoming sky. In 1927 and 1935, respectively, Mrs. Mill and Jakey, as he was known to his many friends, traded the lovely ranch on Sage Creek for a lovely one over the Great Divide. Jakey passed just 3 days before his 82nd birthday and had remained active until illness claimed him. Following their deaths, their youngest son George and his wife Ines took the reins. As did his parents, George and Ines added their own holdings and ideas to the original prosperous ranch. As in days gone by, the welcome mat was always out at the Mill Ranch. From its beginning that spring in 1891, the ranch has known no authority but that of the Mill descendants, which is just what Jacob and Philomena and George and Ines would have wanted. George and Ines worked hard to maintain the Mill Ranch. George was a community leader with a special interest in promoting and improving the livestock industry. In recognition of his service directly to agriculture and the livestock industry in particular, he was elected to the Nile Hall of Fame in Billings, Montana. He was an active member of the Stock Growers Association and served as chairman of the Wyoming Livestock and Sanitary Board. He also served as a judge at the National Western Stock Show in Denver. Ines Mill was active in the state cowbells, and in the early 50s she organized the Niobrara County Cowbells. George Mill passed away in 1975, passing the ranch into the hands of Pete and Wanda Hansen, Jim and Carla Reed. Pete and Wanda made their home on the old CR Ranch, once owned by United States Senator and the 9th Governor of the state of Wyoming, John B. Kendrick, now part of the Mill Holdings. Today, Pete and Wanda's daughter Cheryl Lund resides there and carries on the mill heritage. The yellow-wheeled buggy that came to symbolize Jake Mill and the Mill Ranch rolls no more, but the Half Moon, 38, and 55 brands that were also a symbol live on, as does the ranch itself. I will leave you with something Ines Mill wrote about the Mill Ranch. The ranch and its buildings stand as a fitting monument to the two founders who built and worked here, through good times and bad, for the accomplishment of their purpose. The buildings still stand by the creek, the cattle still graze on the meadow, and may the memories of those who labored there live forever.
Okay, before I forget, if you spoke today, we would like to have all of the presenters gather as soon as we get done here so that we can get a picture for our publication purposes and promotion purposes. Cheryl was our last speaker, and that pretty much concludes our day. And we would like to thank all of the people who spoke and presented for giving us a glimpse into the lives of the people that you have taught us about. Their stories are endlessly fascinating. And thank you all for coming. Please watch for our upcoming events. The next one, which will be at Node, will be an indoor event on October 5th at 2 p.m. Nobody trusts Node in October to be outside. So it will be an indoor event. And feel free to go ahead and go in and check out the displays and the videos inside if you haven't already done so. And thank you again for coming. And Leslie, is there anything else? Okay. Just if everyone that presented would gather over by the post office for a picture, we'll get that out of the way. So thank you very much.